Well, welcome to the Co Away podcast, devoted to the idea that a team of people led by a good owner sharing best practices in a culture built on trust and respect will complete better projects. I'm Howie Ferguson. I'm the executive director of the Construction Owners Association of America, or COA. And today, very happy to be talking with a very active member and leader, and now a good friend, Sam Werschky with Cook Children's Healthcare System. Before Sam introduces himself, though, I'd like my co-pilot to introduce herself because we failed to do that in season one.
Yeah, I'm Lucy Castro, and I am the manager of operations and administration here at COA, a longstanding staffer, the first staffer I like to call myself. Um, don't have much to say yet, but I will jump in where it is necessary, and I play the role of the novice, no nothing, big haired person. So take it away.
Which is a great counter to my no hair person.
Exactly, the
So,
yin and the yang.
so say that's right, Batman and Robin. So, Sam, if you would, not necessarily every single thing of your whole life, but tell us the story, condensed version of your story, your journey, and how you got to Cook and what you do there, and basically how you got there.
Sure, absolutely. So, and again, honored to be on the podcast and talk about owner stuff, and because owner the way owner do business very passionate to me. So it's an honor to be here and kind of share my journey and what we do here at Cook Children's and what I think we makes us pretty cool. But so my journey started really from a owner or from a construction facility standpoint. Started as a career in the Navy. I had some stuff prior to that, but really did a 21-year career in the Navy where I did construction facility management and then whatever else they had me do. Stationed all over the world, all over the globe, and really gained a lot of great skill sets as I went through that journey. And glad I did a career. It was very well worth it. And again, a lot of stuff I still use today that I learned there. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as I go through. So I ended up back in Texas before I retired. I was the public works officer at the Joint Reserve Base here in Fort Worth. The admiral gave me a chance to come back to home state and do some stuff. And when I got here, my wife said, "I'm done moving. All her family's in the Texas area. Although Texas is big, so we're not going to move. You need to find something else to do, or you're going to do it geo bachelor or whatever." And I knew that with three boys in high school, so to speak, that was not it's time to retire. So, as any officer does when they're retiring, what am I going to do next? So my base commander at the time introduced me to the city manager of Fort Worth. They were looking for a director. So I like a great fit. Public Works, doing everything I did. Well, retired on Monday or Friday, started working in the city on Monday, lasted about 8 months. I learned that municipality work wasn't really what I was cut out to be, way too many politics, and I'm too transparent and honest a guy to play that. So at that point, I was introduced to some other Navy veterans that owned an owners rep company, and I ended up going to work for them to manage construction at Texas Christian University. So that's really where I started. I mean, on the Navy side, you're always the owner, but really from a civilian standpoint, that was my first job working for TCU as an owner's rep, managing their capital program. There is where my first introduction to be an owner, and loved it. It was great. The company I worked for was phenomenal. And I thought that's kind of where my career was going to go. But I always had this piece wanting to get back into the owner side, and really wanted to be in healthcare. Because I spent 2.5 years in the Navy running one of the hospitals in the Navy in Portsmouth, Virginia. So I kind of wanted to. Healthcare is where I always wanted to be back, but it's hard to get into once you're out. And so I always tell my fellow folks that are getting out of the Navy, what's the most important thing, and that's networking. So as I networked to consultants and stuff that I worked with at TCU, they happen to know some of the leadership here at Cook. And at the time, we're looking for a director of planning, design, and construction. And so really, the God thing that kind of led me here and, introduced me to the staff here. And after a couple interviews with the C-suite, they offered me a job, and, it was hard leaving the company I was at, but at the end of the day, it was the right decision for me. And again, as I came into Cook, so that was in 2019. So I've been here almost 5 years. Came into Cook, it was an interesting place. It was at that time it celebrated 100-year anniversary, but really the last 30 years they've done construction basically with the GC as a CMPM role. So They had a staff. When I got here, we had a staff of 6. And really the GC ran most of the construction, architecture, and the planning, and we facilitated. We did it well. I would consider us a good owner, but we lacked how to really do business the right way. So, and that was part of the discussion when they interviewed me, and what some of my philosophies and thoughts were. And so that's the really cool thing about Cook. When I Cook Children, when I got here, is that I really had the reins to do whatever I wanted when it come to building a PDC organization. And my charge was to go from good to great. So we're on this journey from good to great from an owner's perspective, and it's been fun. We started out at 6. We're now at 20 staff in the PDC world, or in our department. So we're growing. We are now a system, hospital system, by being just kind of primarily a medical center. So my group oversees all construction, planning, design for the entire system. So anything with Cook brand on it, our folks are oversee it. So that's probably been somewhat of a challenge, going from a small town to now a larger town. And I always tell folks, like turning an aircraft carrier, it's going to be very slow, but we're finally going to get it going in the right direction. So that's kind of my journey while I'm here. And again, I'm the assistant vice president that oversees the planning designing group for the system.
All right. So I have a follow-up question for you, Sam, on that rapid, well, not rapid, but that large growth from 6 to 22 in less than 5 years. I'm guessing there's some growing pains and stuff. But before I get to that, top of your head, without even thinking about it, and there's no wrong answer here. What's the thing, I don't want to say that keeps you up at night, but what's your biggest concern in the realm of what your department does for cooks? What's the thing that troubles you the most, whether it's current or you're looking down the road? What's your biggest concern right now?
Yeah. So my biggest concern is, and it kind of hinges around that growth. I mean, our system, when I got here, we did, I think, a total of 80 something projects as a department. We're doing 200 and something projects now. So how do I staff correctly or resource correctly to be able to handle that growth? And really, that's because we're not telling anybody no. I mean, I have people say, well, just say you can't do it. Well, that's not our motto here. We're going to get it done. So what keeps me up is how do I look strategically as a team? And now that we're a system handling, now I've got a director that sits north of me, of an hour, 2 hours, hour and a half north, that is running our North Campus, and which is a brand new hospital. And so, what I looked at is strategically, how do I develop the right team, the right systems? And again, I learned this in the Navy. I'm not the smartest guy. Leverage those subject matter experts around you that know how to do things. And that's why COA is awesome. I mean, I've met a lot of great owners at COA, consultants at COA. So I have brought on some folks that I've met at COA through the COA network to come in and look at my team, our processes. And the first thing I've done is create a playbook on how we do things from A to Z. That way it's consistent. My partners have it. My team has it. I don't have to, we're all consistent for the most part of how we do business, because I can't manage up north every day if I'm not there. And I don't expect to. I expect to be able to project, let them lead, let them engage, and let them go. So, so that's what's really keeping it. How do I make sure I have the tools in place, the staff in place to handle the massive growth that we have now? Plus, I've got a huge capital campaign that's kicking off now that's going to blow up this whole campus, and which is going to, require a lot of resources. So that's really how do I resource right and move the organization forward. But resources, let them do that. But also, how do I strategically plan for the next 5-10 years as an organization? What does it look like? What partners do I have? How do I want to do business and things like that?
Yeah, 100. That's fabulous answer. And I wasn't meaning to link the rapid growth to the biggest concern, but I didn't know, we didn't do any pre-work. If anybody's wondering, any pre-discussion, but I kind of had a feeling that maybe there'd be a link there. Kind of related to that, Sam, thinking about, and most of our guests, we ask this question because it's probably not talked about enough, or it could be the other end of the spectrum. It's talked about too much, but it's not meaningful. And that is culture. Maybe overused a little bit these days, but you and I both know from Navy days and since how important that is. So again, in the context of onboarding new people, it's good you got a playbook, but sometimes culture, you can't write that in a playbook, and that's kind of when that's what comes out when the going gets tough. How do you how do you manage growth, onboard people, allow them to spread their wings and fly, and yet still maintain what I know is important to you, which is a good culture? How do you do that piece?
Yeah, so it is a challenge, and I think it really boils down to who you're bringing on the team. And we're challenged like anywhere else. You can't afford to bring, your compensation's restricted, and that's another subject for another day of how do we right size the comps and all that. But really, so as we interview, and again, I don't one thing when I interview folks, I don't call the references. It's This network's pretty small, so I can typically find somebody that knows them, and I can gain a lot in an interview of what kind of personality they have, and and I'm not 100% accurate on the folks we've onboarded, but that's my internal staff. I mean, if they can't adhere to the culture, but Cook is when we rolled out our new brand last year, we had this whole cultural platform. What are we about? What builds Cook? What makes Cook children? I mean, what's those special things? And so they rolled out the cool stuff that as the Navy we set through strategic plan, all that kind of stuff they rolled out. But it was really simple stuff. It's the bottom line. It's everything for the child. So how do you bring on people that can buy into a mission that says whatever we do, it's all about, at the end of the day, what that kiddo and their parents' experience is when they come to our campus. So as we look at culture, I've got my internal culture, which again, I'm a very servant leader. I want to make sure they have what they have. I'm going to empower them to do it. I'm a resource for them. Let them, if I interview and I don't feel that they have this drive to go do their own thing and me be a resource, then they're probably not a right fit. So a lot of discussions, a lot of background checks, so to speak, on who I bring on. And again, like I said, not 100% successful, so I'm not going to sit here and say that. We've had our challenges, but at the end of the day, if you can't adhere to the culture, then maybe it's about time you go do something else. But Cook as a whole is a very collaborative organization. Sometimes to our own detriment. I mean, we want to collaborate, and that's one of our pillars. Is we collaborate. We collaborate with parents. We collaborate with kids. We collaborate with the docs, and everybody's got a voice. That's the one thing, and our CEO makes sure everything we do, everybody's got a voice. Now, as a leader in my world, I got to temper that to say, how do we still move forward and make
Right.
you can't make everybody happy. So but that goes into our GCs, our architects, our engineers, our interior, everything that we hire goes into that. They've got to have this collaborative nature of themselves in the way their company does business. And we do a lot of IPD. I had to learn IPD when I come here, integrated project delivery. Never did it. I mean, I grew up in the Navy where that was the furthest thing we did was IPD. So when I came here, I had to learn that culture, and it really is the culture. I say PDC is, even though our big projects are IPD, everything we do is, regardless of partners, are very collaborative, and everybody's on board for that one mission of taking care of those kiddos. So culture you can't teach, but you can sure make sure the platform's there, your vision, what you expect, how you run your shop is definitely you can kind of set forward.
Sam, on that, kind of related to that, because you said multiple times in there talking about taking care of the kiddos, and you're going back to the core mission. Us as owners, and I have this issue sometimes myself, we all have to remind ourselves that usually plan, design, construction, and even operations maintenance is not the core mission. In your case, the core mission is to make kids that are not doing well better.
Right.
That's simplified, but the beauty of that is in the design construction realm is I think it's fair to say, I'm pretty sure you'd agree, that especially in the last 10 years and for kids coming into our ranks now, fulfillment and joy is a big part of what drives people.
Yeah.
And when they understand, okay, it's not just that I'm turning this wrench or I'm dumping this dirt here. No, man, you're helping make a kid's life better.
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing, again, kind of softball question, but I'm guessing y'all leverage that and really make sure to remind everybody, all the way down to a day laborer pushing a broom on a job site, what they're really doing. Is that true? How do y'all do that?
It is true. And again, we didn't talk prior to this, so this is not staged, but Howard, we've got a video that we put together that is some of our trade partners that have been here for 30 years, 20 years, whatever, that kind of, and we show this video to all those folks coming to work for us, regardless of what level of trades. My son was a apprentice on for electrical sub, and he saw it. So it really goes back and it says, okay, why what you're doing is important. Here's why it's important. This is the this is what you're doing. And it goes through and they interviews them, but it shows them the hospital and interviews kids and thank you for what you're doing for me. And you got this kid that's in all this stuff, and he says, what you do matters. And it does hit home and thinking, okay, when I'm up on this floor, and we even go to the point, like if we're working near a NICU, where you got babies that are, inches long with stuff all, we will show them videos. Since COVID, we can't take them there. We'll show them videos, and we'll show them how a sudden noise can stop that baby's heart. And we'll have the docs or nurses talk. So when you're down there jackhammering and we say stop, we're not just suggesting you stop, because that right on the end of that noise is some little baby that may be this big that is relying on you to do what we're doing. So doing things like that and putting it, especially to folks that have kids, I mean, it hits home real quick. And to me, I always tell people it's easy to come to work here. You can have a bad day, go down to that hospital, walk those halls, and your whole day changes, your perspective changes. So it's a neat place to work.
Yeah. All of a sudden, that late answer on the RFI doesn't quite seem
Right.
as tragic, right?
Right. Exactly.
Perspective. Again, kind of related, maybe not. You and I've been around long enough, and heck, Lucy's been around COA long enough to know that kind of the primary ways that most owners and everybody, all stakeholders, measure success for a project of any kind is some threesome in whatever order of cost, budget, and scope, quality. Did we build or renovate? What we're intending to do. But especially in the last 8-10 years, more and more owners and their partners are talking about other measures of success. And lean, to talk about conditions of satisfaction. Whatever your terminology is, there's more than those three matter, but there's other three. Can you talk about that and other ways that you all measure success on a project?
Yeah, definitely those are the ones we talk about the most, because it is the most important in our world, because that's what we report on. But I think for us at Cook Children's, shortly after I got here, they established a new position, and she's the vice president of patient experience. And I think for us as a team, whether it be IPD, whether it be CMO, whatever that team is that we're delivering a project, it's one avenue of success for us, and regardless of what kind of project it is how are we making this place a world-class place? And that's always, everybody wants to be world-class, but no, truly, you walk our halls, it looks different, it smells different, it seems different. But how do you create a space where these kids that are stressed out come into your facility and de-stress and say, okay, this isn't a doctor. It doesn't smell like a doctor. It doesn't look like a doctor's office. I mean, the new garage we built, you pull in, it's got these cool LED banners that chase down the thing, and the kids just sit there and look at them, and the mom's got to drag them into their appointment, and then they get into the building, and there's this cool labyrinth where Peaks, our mascot's a dragon, and they can find Peaks in the labyrinth as they walk through the atrium, and it's just fun things. So how do you, our part of, again, a simple answer without going to a lot of other places is really that we measure it by the reaction of the kiddos of the spaces we build, the reaction of the parents when they walk into one of our facilities going, wow, not, oh my gosh, I got to drag my kid into the hospital. So that is, I think, a unique measure of success that we measure here at Cook Children's. We are starting to look at, some of the success from the standpoint of sustainability and all those others. I will be frank and just transparent, that hasn't quite hit us here yet. It's something that I talk about a lot with my C-suite and folks, because it's going to be here. So what are we doing to position ourselves? And those will become, right now, those aren't success measures per se, but I know very shortly those will become, what are we doing from sustainability? And then, that'll add, it'll be the fourth pillar to quality time and budget type of deal in my mind. But from us, it's really hard to measure. Can't really measure the kids' reactions or their success, but you can sit there and watch it, and if they don't want to go to their appointment because they're too busy playing Peaks, and you've hit the home run.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love that. And yeah, Sam, I think the sustainability part is definitely coming. I mean, you probably know as well as I do, it's starting to get baked into more and more building codes. So even if you don't pursue LEED certification or green gloves or whatever, it's not far down the road from being kind of required by code anyway.
Yeah, and it's going to be, and I know reading the tea leaves, it's going to be required by our accreditation folks, the Joint Commissions, and those folks that do it. I mean, it's there, it's being talked about. It's voluntary, but how long does voluntary? So what I'm telling our folks in the C-suite is let's get ahead of it. Let's figure out what our baselines are. What do we want to measure? What do we want to do? So that way we're not react, because I hate being reactionary. We start throwing everything into the wall and see what sticks, and then we're all running around crazy. And none of us have time in our day to be being reactive. So right now is the time to be proactive. And then I've got the president and some others really kind of listening now and understanding. We need to start looking at this, and they're all in. They that's one thing about our leadership. They're all in. I mean, like lean. They love lean. They love LCI. They love IPD. It's a really cool environment where you can connect something with those folks and talk about lean, and they're all in.
That's awesome. Luce, it looked like you were about to ask something.
Yeah. I was curious about IPD. Are you guys doing a full on IPD, or is this IPD light? Wow.
No, we're full. We just finished. Matter of fact, this morning we had an after action from one of our big ones. So this is our 1, 2, 3. This is our, I think, 4th true IPD. My 2nd IPD, and we're embarking right now. We're validating for our 3rd huge IPD. But
wow,
full on 9-party signature virtual team set up. I mean, we go to the point where we bring in consultants that do personalities, and we all establish our app with our splash. So if I'm having an overextended day, somebody can push the app and say, okay, here's how Sam's going to react when I deliver this news. I mean, it becomes a family. It really does. And IPD, again, if you're true IPD, it changes the culture of how you deliver a project. And I can talk for another hour on examples of how that's been true in the last 24 months.
Well, you don't have to go into a 24-hour thing, but I am curious where they put you on the graph. Are you an eagle? Are you an owl? Well, how?
And we don't. We do extroverted, introverted, detail. So it's the splash. It's called the splash. I don't remember what the app's called, but yeah, it's a splash area where if I'm overextended, I'm going to be very detailed, or I'm not going to care about the details. Just give me the doggone answer so we can move forward, type of deal. But so it's funny when we react with people, we always say, well, bring up your splash. Let's look at this. Let's, it's, and now my boss and I, we're so synced up. Sometimes I think we have the same brain, because he'll know exactly what I'm going to say and react if something's delivered a certain way, and I vice.
Funny.
No, that's good. And we're seeing more and more of that, Sam, more project teams or just departments, as an internal thing, leaning on things like that, or just profile or Clifton strengths or any of those to try to understand each other, and so understand what buttons to push with some, what not. And this is not their love language. This is all that matters.
Yeah, it does. And so and on the IPD front, I mean, even I talk to a lot of state folks in government, they can't do IPD, but there's so many tenets, and I've got a presentation I do that talks about the tenets of IPD that apply regardless. And because there's so many of those things that IPD requires or drives in a culture that you can adopt, and a lot of people do when it comes to design assist or things like that. But even our small projects now that aren't IPD, my PMs and even the GCs and stuff we use lean a lot, thinking like one collaborative team, even though they they don't have the contractual piece, but it's just the way they meet and think and talk and move forward.
It's awesome.
Right on. All right, so I just 2 quick final ones, Sam, and we'll cut you loose. The first is kind of this might be the only question I'm asking almost all of our guests, because it's one of my favorites. And it's not on the flip side of culture. It's actually part of culture, but it's more about leadership and everyone's different styles. I love how read plenty of books from everybody from Schwarzkopf to Lee Iacocca, and different leadership styles fascinate me. So here's a question for you. When it comes to, you can fill in the blank on any example, any sort of negative, tense conflict, a situation, whether it's on a project team, with a boss, with a subordinate, how do you handle that? What is your style? Because there's really no wrong answer. It's whatever works best for Sam Werschky. What is your approach when the times are tough? How do you typically, and maybe it varies depending on the situation, but kind of what's your go-to game plan there?
I think my and again, it does depend whether it's by one of my, one of my folks, or whether it's a counterpart, whether it's a G, but it really boils down to, I say it's an issue that happened, and your typical reaction is, how in the heck did this happen? Because that's typically what I get from some of my leaders. Why did this happen? How did we get here? My approach is, we can get to how it happened. I want to approach this by, so this is the issue. This is where we're at. I need to understand. Let's walk through the whys. why, whatever you want to call it. But we need to understand why it happened, not to place blame, but we can move forward and learn, move on. I had a teaching moment not too long ago where, there was something that happened. I said, I could bring this person in and scold and do all that. You should have known better, but let's not. Let's talk about it. My style is, how can I help you do better? It's a teaching moment, but let's not have it happen again. Let's learn from what we did, because I've messed up plenty in my career, things where I should have been hung, so to speak. But I had great mentors that said, "Hey, let's learn from this. What did you learn?" And that's usually what I'll ask. And especially if it's one of my folks. What did you learn from this? And let's talk about that and not do it again. And a lot of them walk out. And again, we're all human. We're going to make mistakes. Let's just not do it again. And same thing with a lot of our GCs or architects. Let's work through the why. And I can go back up my chain and say, this is why it happened. This is what I put in place not to happen again. And it's a mistake. I own it. It was a mistake. We missed valves. We should have caught it. And this is real life, just dealing with it now. Should have caught it. We didn't. This is what we're putting in place next time, not to catch it again. But again, we're all one team. I can bash you all day long, but let's learn from what we did and move forward. That's kind of, when it comes to conflict, I want to listen a lot and typically don't want to come in guns blazing and yelling, because that typically shuts barriers down. And I want to hear why it happened, what happened. Let's all talk about it. And if it's my fault, I'll own it. That's one thing I'm very passionate about. If it's mine or my team, I'm owning it, and I'll figure it out. But I'm not going to shift my blame to somebody else, because that didn't work with me.
Love it. All right, last one, Sam, and I'll say in advance, thank you. I knew you'd be one of the easiest guests we've ever had to talk to, and you didn't disappoint. So thank you for taking some time from your busy schedule. A little bit corny, but I think it's relevant here because, again, we have a little bit of similar tracks especially with our Navy time. If you had a time machine, you could go back, you fill in the blank, 20, 25, 30 years to your younger Sam. It sounds like you've had a very, not perfect, but a great career, great experiences. But if you could go back and tell that 25, that 22, that 20-year-old Sam, whisper in his ear something, oh, if only I'd, what advice would you have given your younger self?
And I heard people say this that were my mentors and stuff. If I was to go back, life goes by quick. I think there's time in my life I didn't enjoy it enough. I was too focused on the mission at hand, whatever I had to do, whether I, tried to make the best out of the family. But as I go back now, my kids are out of the house, and you start retrospecting of all this stuff. And I think really it's telling my younger self that slow down and enjoy it. Quit going so fast because you want that next whatever it is, or you want to impress your boss, whatever that is. But slow down and just enjoy life, because I have to tell myself that today. Right now it's just forced on me. I got to go 100 miles an hour to keep up. But it's take time with that's one thing I say. Just take time, enjoy life, because I look back now, man, we should have done this, we should have done that, we should have traveled with the kids here, and now we're trying to catch up and do some of those things with the boys, and now they include significant others, and it's financially it's just would have been cheaper back then maybe. But
yeah, here comes the pragmatic side.
Right.
Yeah, excellent, great stuff, Sam. We appreciate, and by the way, we also, on behalf of COA, really are glad that you found us, because we're thrilled to have you as a member, and a very active one at that. So thank you.
I appreciate it, and I don't just say this. COA is special, and the more I learn, the more I engage. It's got a lot of great stuff, and the networking is to me one of the key things, that because we're all struggling with the same stuff. I may deal with patients, somebody else deals with students or transportation, whatever, but it's all the same struggle. It's just painted a little different. And I think that's one thing that COA allows us, that avenue to discuss and solve world problems as we move forward. And again, I'm hoping to continue to be a very, very active part and contribute where I can, because it is, I don't say this because y'all, it is a passion of mine. It's an organization that I feel 100% tied into what I do every day and to make things better. So I appreciate what y'all do.